Number 8. Claire Boardman. In 2022, an English mother threatened to kill her younger lover's ex-beauty queen girlfriend when she found out she was pregnant. 44-year-old Claire Boardman sent disturbing messages to 29-year-old Chloe Douglas Riley when her live-in boyfriend, 33-year-old Stuart Jones, decided to move and instead live with the victim. Claire, who lives in the village of Bollington, Cheshire, sent bar manager Chloe multiple texts calling her every insult in the book. She then took it a step further and threatened the woman, telling her she was going to kick the out of her. Claire and Chloe weren't always on bad terms. In fact, when Chloe first moved into the same neighborhood as the 44-year-old, she wasn't even a concern. But when Claire's younger boyfriend, who runs a hygiene firm, secretly began an affair with the woman, tensions quickly started to go south. Things only got worse when Chloe found out that she was pregnant with Stuart's baby. The pregnancy only made Chloe and Stuart closer, and eventually the man moved. When Claire found out, she began hurling threats at the younger woman over their adjoining backyard wall, at one point yelling, "Just you wait, they're coming for you, you are dead," indicating that she hired someone to kill the ex-beauty queen. On May 31st, Claire knocked on Chloe's front door and then tried to push her way inside, saying, "Let me in or I will kill you." Then, months later, Claire was seen cutting bushes in her backyard, swinging an axe while shouting. When Chloe went to her garden to smoke about 30 minutes later, Claire, who still had the axe in her hand, reportedly glared at the younger woman before threatening her, causing Chloe to call the police. At that point, she was terrified of Claire and truly felt like her life was in danger. Unfortunately, a restraining order against Claire was refused, but she did have to pay £129 in costs as well as a victim surcharge. She was also conditionally discharged for 2 short years. Number 7. Michelle Mills. In early 2013, a UK mother of 2 murdered her younger partner by stabbing him 24 times, snapping a knife blade in the process. After texting her ex-boyfriend and telling him she wished she had never let him go, 31-year-old Michelle Mills and her partner at the time, 20-year-old Edward Miller, started fighting. Edward found out that Michelle had drunkenly contacted her ex, who was the father of her oldest child. Anyone in Edward's position would have been upset in that situation, but what happened next was horrifying. As the couple continued arguing, things took a devastating turn when Michelle reportedly grabbed a kitchen knife. In a blind rage, she plunged the blade into Edward's chest, abdomen, and back with so much force that the knife handle broke off. When she realized what she had done, she called the authorities, but it was already too late to save her lover. Edward was rushed to the hospital but died just a short while later. Michelle, who worked as a barmaid, was Edward's first girlfriend, which only makes the story even more heartbreaking. The couple had only been living together for just 2 months in their Sculford, Leicestershire cottage before the horrifying incident. In the end, Michelle was found guilty of murder and she was handed a life sentence. Number 6. Melissa Barger. On Memorial Day 2014, a 38-year-old Waffle House waitress was accused of planning to murder her husband with her younger boy toy in New Albany, Indiana. Melissa Barger's boyfriend, 26-year-old Matthew Pavlizin, initially would have done anything for his married lover, even murder. But thankfully he came to his senses before pulling the trigger out of concern for Melissa's children, who would have lost their father if he'd followed through with the plan. Instead, he teamed up with law enforcement to turn Melissa in. An undercover Indiana State Police officer wired Matthew and drove him to multiple meetings between him and Melissa at a McDonald's in Cordon, where investigators conducted surveillance right outside. During these meetings, Melissa explained the plan to take care of her husband, which involved taking her children for a picnic on Memorial Day while leaving a door to her house unlocked, allowing Matthew access into the home. She then told her lover to shoot her husband Lee Barger and make it look like a burglary gone bad. Feeling guilty, Matthew discussed the impact the killing would have on the woman's kids, to which Melissa replied coldly, "I'm sure they'll cry for a minute or two, anybody's going to." The woman stated that killing her husband was the only way out of her marriage, after which she stood to gain the man's insurance payout and a home in Palmyra. Of course, this whole conversation was recorded, meaning Melissa was caught red-handed, but she still pled not guilty. She was held on a $50,000 full cash bond at the Harrison County Jail, but unfortunately, her sentencing is unclear. Number 5. Mary Frances Debbie Fletcher. Let's admit it, it's common for high school boys to fantasize about having a relationship with an older woman, but most teens would never act on these urges. It's uncommon, though, for a middle-aged woman to reciprocate these feelings, let alone do something about them. But in 2015, a disgraced 42-year-old landed herself in hot water after having sexual contact with not one, not two, but 3 teenagers from Mount Shasta High School's football team in McLeod, California. Mary Frances Debbie Fletcher reportedly met with the younger boys while working with the team's photographer. Kirk Ardis, Siskiyou County District Attorney, heard word of the woman's inappropriate conduct in February 2017. And later that month, he charged Mary with knowingly dissuading a witness or victim of a crime and unlawful sexual intercourse. But it took another 3 years before the case was heard in court. Mary's attorney, Erin McNally, discussed several personal issues her client was dealing with in 2015, citing her drinking problem and her personal history as a victim of abuse. She also said that Mary lost her job as a result of the case, which gained national attention, and so the attorney asked the court to not follow through with the probation department's recommended sentence of 364 days in jail. After her arrest in 2017, Mary was released on $10,000 bail, but at her sentencing hearing, prosecutor Mike DeArton stated that the nature of the crime and Mary's blatant disregard for punishment made it more important for the woman to serve time. As a result, Judge William Davis sentenced Mary to 1 year in prison on June 10, 2020. When you were younger, who was your first older celebrity crush? Let us know in the comments below. And while you're at it, hit the subscribe button to join the Badger fam. Number 4. Sabrina LIMON. In San Bernardino County, California in 2014, a 37-year-old cougar and her lover hatched a plan to kill the woman's husband so they could be together. For Sabrina LIMON, leaving her husband wasn't an option, since according to her, he'd rather die than split up. But Sabrina found a new flame in 27-year-old Jonathan Michael Hearn, so she desperately wanted a way out of her marriage. This was only made harder by the fact that she had 2 kids with her husband Robert, and she wanted to avoid a custody battle at all costs. She was also afraid of losing mutual friends and tarnishing her public image with divorce. So, in her mind, murder was the only option. And oddly enough, Jonathan, who met Sabrina in 2012 at a Costco, was on board and ready to help. To get rid of Robert, Sabrina planned to serve her husband arsenic-laced pudding. The murderous lovers even practiced using the chemical by poisoning a noisy dog in Sabrina's neighborhood. But they ended up going down a more violent course of action. In August 2014, just 2 days before Sabrina and Robert's 14th wedding anniversary, Robert was found dead at his job with 2 gunshot wounds in the head. It was determined that Jonathan was the one who pulled the trigger, since he was caught by surveillance cameras fleeing the scene just minutes after the murder. But get this, Sabrina and Jonathan didn't just kill so they could be together, they were also doing it for Robert's $300,000 life insurance policy. In the end, investigators caught onto the duo's plot and they were arrested. Sabrina, who was charged with murder, solicitation to commit murder, and conspiracy, received 25 years to life in prison. Jonathan eventually turned against his older lover in court, and as a result, his first-degree murder charge was reduced to voluntary manslaughter, to which he pled guilty. He also got a 25-year sentence for his involvement in Robert's death. Number 3. NATHALIE FRASER. In most of these cases we've discussed so far, the cougar was in the wrong. But for NATHALIE FRASER, her younger boyfriend was to blame. In 2019, NATHALIE was found dead in a suitcase after moving to Cuba from Canada to be with her lover, Leon Nuviola. NATHALIE, who was originally from Quebec, sold her house to make the move to the western Cuban province of Matanzas with her musician boyfriend. But just a month after the 52-year-old woman arrived in December 2019, she was reported missing. The mother of two's body was later discovered in a suitcase at a garbage site, and Leonel was apprehended. The killer, who was 13 years younger than the victim, was said to have been controlling, impulsive, and possessive. And after the woman's relatives lost contact with her, Lionel and his family became increasingly difficult to get in touch with, despite previously communicating well. Unfortunately, at the moment, it's not clear where the case stands, and there haven't been any updates since 2020. But when news of the murder broke, it was reported that Lionel was being held in police custody as the main suspect in Nathalie's death. Number 2. Diane Peebles. A woman in her late 50s from Edinburgh married a man less than half her age in 2016 after moving from Scotland to Sri Lanka to be with him. Diane Peebles believed that Perianjana de Zoysa was her one shot at happiness when she decided to make a major life change and uproot her entire life to be with him. The two first met in 2011 on holiday. Even though the man was just 21 years old, Diane truly believed that he loved her and planned to spend the rest of her life with him. But things started going wrong immediately after arriving in Sri Lanka, since she wasn't allowed to go anywhere without being escorted by a member of de Zoysa's family. The man often stayed out all night without telling his new wife of his whereabouts, and he constantly took off with her money without bringing any income home himself. Peebles even paid for a house to be built for them and purchased a minibus for him, thinking he could make money giving people rides. In total, she spent about £100,000 trying to make her marriage work, but in the end, it was all for nothing. In 2017, de Zoysa was shot to death, and soon after, Diane found out that he had a whole secret life, including another wife whom he'd married in 2016. Diane believes the man was killed because he was seen as wealthy due to all the cash she'd given him. And even though she found out about his double life, the woman's problems were just beginning. Diane was unable to leave the country for 18 months after her husband's murder. She was left with no money and her in-laws refused to help her. She ended up relying on the help of strangers she'd met online to buy her a plane ticket home to Scotland. In the wake of everything, Diane was tasked with picking up the pieces of her broken life. But she used her experience as a wake-up call and started warning others who might find themselves in a similar position. Number 1. Vicky White. The assistant director of an Alabama prison disappeared one day in 2022 along with her younger white supremacist lover, who she helped break out of prison. At the time, 56-year-old Vicky White was second in command at Lauderdale County Jail. But she'd met 38-year-old Casey Colwhite on the job, and the two of them began an affair. Casey, who was not related to Vicky, was a murderer and a convicted felon. And on the day they ran away, Vicky had volunteered to drive the man to a mental health checkup just 3 minutes away from the jail. But on the way there, the couple switched cars and hit the open road. Initially, investigators thought Vicky had been kidnapped, but it soon became clear that she'd purposely fled with the felon. The woman sold her home 9 days before the incident, and she apparently used an alias to buy a new car, the same one authorities claim they used to escape. But the vehicle was found broken down and abandoned not long after, so the duo stole their car and kept moving. 10 days later, they were spotted driving through Evansville, Indiana, prompting a high-speed chase with law enforcement. It's said that in the heat of the moment, Vicky ended her own life using a gun. Casey, on the other hand, was captured by police and sent right back to prison where he belonged. It was a sad end to a confusing story, since Vicky was due to retire the day after she escaped with Casey. This case goes to show that even though some people are capable of changing, you should never start a relationship with a convicted killer. When looking for a romantic partner, what age range do you prefer? Is it someone older than you or someone younger, and why? Let us know in the comments down below. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to subscribe to the channel. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you next time on Bad Badger.